The next few poses will be done in a standing position. Please move slowly and at your own pace. Keep the sturdy chair nearby for balance if needed. If you find that I'm talking faster than you are moving, please take your time and do fewer repetitions. Take a nice deep inhale and exhale. Place the feet about hips-width apart and grounded on the floor. Lift the toes and spread them nice and wide, and feel the navel pull gently in towards the spine. Push the toes into the floor and lean forward just a little bit. Feel the muscles that keep you steady. Lean back just a little bit and feel the toes come up. Feel the muscles that keep you steady in this position. Now push all four corners of the feet into the floor. Notice the steadiness of mountain pose. Notice how the steadiness of mountain pose feels. On the next inhale, roll the shoulders towards the ears, back and down so the shoulders are slightly open. Let the palms rest open to the side. Inhale and let the arms rise with the palms facing up. Exhale, bend at the elbows and allow the hands to come down the center line. Sink into the knees just a little. Repeat this again. Inhale, lift the arms with the palms facing up. Allow the hands and face to be relaxed. Continue with this movement at your own pace. Breathe as you move and try to coordinate the breath with the movement. On the next breath, lift the arms back over the head. Fingertips point in, palms face up. Imagine that you have candles in the palms of your hands and you do not want to spill them. Turn the fingertips so they face behind you. The palms remain up. Turn the fingertips to the side and then to the front like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again, towards one another, and then forwards like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again. Let's do this rotation one more time. After the second rotation, allow the hands to cascade down by the side and let them rest. Pause for one slow inhale and exhale. One more breath. Inhale, exhale. This next exercise is excellent for strengthening the spine and gently stretching the muscles of the back, front, and sides. Attempt to make the movement easeful and gentle. We will do these movements with various arm positions. The first arm position is the easiest. Please be sure to stay with the one that feels best for your body. We will demonstrate them all. Take the right hand to the waist and then the left. Roll the shoulders open. And on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale to the center. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale back to the center. Roll the shoulders up back and down. And on the next inhale, gently pull the navel towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin and feel a sense of lengthening through the front of the body. On the next exhale, begin to fold gently forward. It does not have to be all the way. Bend the knees slightly. Inhale and rise back to a standing position. Open the left arm to the side. Keep the elbow bent. Leave the right hand on the waist. Inhale. Exhale, lean slightly to the right, and then return back to the center. Bring the left hand down to the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. Exhale and lengthen to the left. Return to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Gently pull the navel in towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward halfway. Inhale back to standing. Open the left arm again. Inhale, and on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale and return back to the center. Place the left hand on the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale and return back to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Lengthen through the front of the body. Slightly pull the shoulder blades together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward. Knees slightly bent. Inhale and return to standing in mountain pose. Pause for a moment. Inhale and exhale. For this warrior sequence, attempt to keep the movements gentle and relaxed. If you notice that you are struggling, move the feet closer together. Lower the arms or make the movement smaller. This pose is great for strengthening the legs, respiration, and opening the shoulders. Step the left foot forward just a few feet. The back foot points in at a 45-degree angle. The front knee bends and the hips face front if possible. Inhale, open the arms and bend at the elbows. On the exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards each other. Inhale, open the arms and push the heart softly forwards. Relax the shoulders. Exhale, bring the arms together. Inhale, open the arms to where you feel comfortable. Exhale, relax the arms inwards. Inhale, open and expand. Exhale, contract. Inhale, exhale. Bring the hands back down by the side. Return to mountain pose. One breath here. Inhale, exhale. Step the right foot forward. Take a moment, there's no rush. Ground the back foot into the floor. Bend the front knee. When you are ready, open the arms. Inhale. Exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards one another. Inhale, open the arms. This is a relaxed opening in the chest. Exhale, bring the hands and arms towards one another. Inhale, repeat again, creating spaciousness with a full inhale. Exhale, contract and relax the arms slightly. 2 more times at your own pace. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Let the hands rest down by the side and return back to mountain pose. Pause here for a few breaths.
Welcome back to the 18th online episode of Peacetime, hosted on alternating Sunday mornings and Thursday evenings by PeacePoint, with myself, Pratt Nicholas Thanissaro, live streaming from Dhammakaya International Meditation Center in Azusa, California. Today's session will be about an hour and 10 minutes long, and will consist of a 20-minute talk and 25 minutes of meditation, finishing up with 25 minutes of conclusion, your questions and news updates. Last time you saw me, we looked at the art of compassion. The topic for the Dhamma talk today will be Give Forgiveness, Get Peace. Again, this session I would encourage you to send any questions you have by emailing me at peacetime.questions@gmail.com so that I can have a shot at answering them next time round. Meditation is a strange thing because it has an influence on other aspects of your life. You have been duly warned, but in another sense, your life is also affected by your meditation. Meditation and life are a two-way street, so topics like forgiveness are not entirely unrelated to meditation, because forgiveness is about a state of mind, hopefully a positive state of mind, and something that not only supports meditation, but which is also easier to attain if you are a meditator, because, as we shall see, it is probably easier to be a forgiving person if you are also a meditator. If you are not a meditator yet, or you only recently started practicing, here is something where meditation has a practical application. Today, as we shall see, anger, resentment, hurt, guilt, and regret all fuel negative mental chatter. Those internal dialogues usually cause us to obsess over what we could have said or done differently. Instead, we can use these emotions as a doorway to forgiveness, for ourselves and for others. By doing so, these emotions will become learning opportunities rather than something we use to beat ourselves up. The key lesson is not making the same mistake twice, whether it be the same action or the same reaction. And meditation together with forgiveness can provide the conditions for this liberating possibility. Forgiveness paired up with meditation helps us to take proactive steps that prevent us from falling into the same habitual thinking, where regret or guilt will keep us in a repetitive loop of negative thought. Forgiveness is a multifaceted subject because you can look at it from many different perspectives. Some people might think of forgiveness as a recipient. You might have done something terrible to people you know, and if only they would forgive you, let you off the hook, then you could overcome your sense of guilt. Generally, it's something where if you are in that position, you would welcome forgiveness because you could then turn a corner on that episode of your life. Some people look at forgiveness as the person who is maybe beating themselves up because they find that they are less than perfect. Maybe they are under the impression that they are the only person in the world who is not perfect, but if they can realize that imperfection is part of being human, then they have to accept the reality of forgiving themselves occasionally. But most commonly we think of forgiveness as meaning the perspective of having to deal with emotions when others have wronged us, where we are the aggrieved party in the situation. We may be considering whether or not to forgive that other person who has somehow wronged us. Some people may think they are in a position of power by withholding forgiveness to that other person. There's an image that goes around of forgiving people being somehow weak and just a doormat. This is one reason why we have to talk about things like forgiveness, because it's not obvious how being a forgiving person might actually be an advantage in your life. These days, they've got a new psychological technique known as forgiveness therapy, which is apparently much in demand. And the fact that therapists can make a living as a forgiveness therapist must mean that there is something in it for both therapist and patient alike. So we will look today at some scenarios where forgiveness is possibly something you would be reluctant to give others, but where I hope I'll be able to demonstrate that in the majority of the situations, having forgiveness for that other person will be for the greater good. Although I will add that exactly who is going to be the person who is benefiting in each case may differ from scenario to scenario. Before we start looking at scenarios, I'd like to bring your attention to the wise words of the Canadian novelist Alden Nolan, who pointed out that it is a child who realizes adults are not perfect. It is an adolescent who can forgive adults their imperfections. But it is an adult and a wise person who can forgive themselves for their own imperfections. So let's look at some scenarios to explore the best attitude to forgiveness in each case. The first will be a case where things happen to you that you can't do anything about, but where the perpetrator is an identifiable person or agency rather than just being a natural disaster. The second sort of scenario will be cases where there is hurt, but you need to do some of the work to remove that sense of hurt. Thirdly, there are cases where forgiveness needs to come hand in hand with a negotiation to save you from further exploitation, where forgiveness is necessary, but also some insurance against naivety. And lastly, for completeness, there are the rare cases where you would be better not to give in. So we start with the scenario of an unchangeable situation with an identifiable perpetrator. I believe this picture comes from some country where things like title deeds on land are not legally protected. Maybe the sort of countries where there is a lot of wild land, where people can stake a claim. Maybe their family have lived on the land for generations, but they have no documentation to prove it. And then one day the government comes along and wants to build a road through it. So you may get a situation like this, where someone has just helped themselves to what you thought was your land, and they're not going to give it back again. So most people would feel upset by that. So I would like to ask you, in this scenario, where there is nothing you can do about it because the government is not going to give you back the land, would you like A, to live the rest of your life without getting your land back and also live with a deep anger that disrupts your inner life and those around you, or B, live for the rest of your life without getting your land back and be free of deep anger that disrupts you, your loved ones, and your community? So you're not going to get your land back no matter what. So given the choice, the better option is to get over it. If your preferred option is B, you can continue listening to the rest of the session, and we will learn about this thing called forgiveness that will help us cope with the second wave of the impact of a hurtful scenario. Although it won't help you to exercise your property rights, what is the point of forgiveness here? It will help you avoid disrupting yourself, your loved ones, and your community. It is subjective, but it does count, because at the very least, it helps prevent stomach ulcers. So, research shows that there are a lot of things lacking forgiveness can do to undermine your sense of well-being. People who are hanging on to anger or withholding their forgiveness for whatever reason may actually become rather withdrawn from social relationships in general. They don't want to be confronted by situations where people might look as if they are begging for their forgiveness. They may become lonely as a result. They may suffer from trust issues, which they have now made personal by not getting over this issue, to the point that they find it difficult to trust anyone else ever again. Lack of forgiveness produces aversive emotions, even to the extent that there is trauma experienced at a physical level. EMG, which means the sort of electrical impulses that control your muscles, and you can detect on the surface of your skin, will be sent haywire. Heart rate and blood pressure reach unhealthy levels, and your emotions and mental faculties deteriorate. All these things could be prevented if you went with Plan B just now. In other words, there is no use crying over spilled milk. You're not going to get your land back, but you could do without the mental and physical damage. So that is forgiveness helping purely on a subjective basis. Forgiveness is said to be like a hacksaw that you can use to cut off that big ball and chain, where forgiveness is the hacksaw and the emotions are the ball and chain. Forgiveness is a funny thing because often the people who did it to us have forgotten what they did long ago. We think we're keeping the ball and chain to spite them. In fact, they don't care, so you may as well be rid of it. We come to a second scenario where work is needed to remove the hurt. At this point, I have to acknowledge Robert Enright for his forgiveness therapy book for highlighting the full variety of forgiveness applications. Some people feel that they shouldn't have to deal with forgiveness because they are already the aggrieved party. If someone has done something really bad to them, instead of the perpetrator having to do something to fix the situation, it ends up being the victim who has to fix the situation for themselves. The victim definitely thinks that this is double whammy on their part. Not only are they a aggrieved party, but they are the one who's going to have to deal with the mending for themselves. Logically, it would be fairer if they were the other way around, where the perp should have to come to be the one making amends. Enright makes the comparison that even for something much more physical, like a guy, let's say, called Jeremy, who dislocates his shoulder, where it wasn't his fault because James pushed him. Jeremy is hurt, but it is also Jeremy who has to go through the inconvenience of going for physiotherapy. But in the end, it's Jeremy who gets rid of their pain. So if it was shoulder pain, it is the victim who has to deal with it. Despite the pain and the disproportionate emphasis on action by the victim, forgiveness still entails the victim being proactive. So, what sort of things do you need to tell yourself when you are having to swallow your pride and overcome your hurt? Well, firstly, you need to think about it being for your own benefit and not for the benefit of the other party. Secondly, you need to remind yourself that just because you forgive them doesn't mean you condone what they've done or have forgotten what they've done, especially in scenarios where forgetting may mean they take the opportunity to do it to you again. As we shall see, forgiving and forgetting are two completely different things. Thirdly, if you're able to forgive, the good thing it does for you is that you can turn the corner on all those negative emotions, put them behind you. Why? Because there are certain people who, if they can blame all their problems in their life on something or someone else, they are going to do just that for the rest of their life. In the short term, this strategy might seem quite convenient because for no matter what complaint they can say, oh well, it was because my parents mistreated me when I was young and it has ruined the rest of my life. What can you expect from me? Anything I do is substandard in my life. Oh well, I can blame it on my parents. So you have got someone you can blame for everything now. I'm not saying all parents are blameless, but if one day you decide to give up your victim complex and you start taking responsibility for your own life instead of blaming your parents for everything, actually you can take back control of your own life. And you can stop having an excuse for making a mess of everything you do. You therefore empower yourself as a person if you're able to stop putting the blame for everything on someone else. So, forgiveness is actually going to help you in that direction. If you are taking back power for your own life, I think most people would accept that you are a braver person as a result. A fourth reason for forgiveness is that it allows you to release difficult emotions. If you are able to forgive, it's like taking the stopper out of a bottle, allowing all the negative emotions associated with that lack of forgiveness to leave you and go elsewhere, without denying or minimizing those feelings. You don't need to deny that they are there anymore. A fifth reason is that it stops toxic emotions reaching you and those around you. If you can be forgiving, the anger and resentment that would otherwise be there will no longer be toxic to you and everyone around you. A sixth reason for forgiveness is it saves your family from conflict. And if it is in a family context, generally, the people who suffer from the lack of forgiveness are not you or your partner, but the children in the relationship who are caught in the middle. They are the ones who get all the flack. Last but not least, the thing which everyone is looking forward to when they withhold forgiveness is getting even. Even if you do manage to get even, and most people don't, actually the pleasure of that is overestimated and definitely short-lived. So it probably wasn't worth the wait, and you may never get to that point anyway, so they have in effect taken away your satisfaction. I've mentioned elsewhere that for evolutionary reasons our brain seems to be hardwired to pick up on negative and threatening stimuli more easily than detecting positive stimuli, and the scientific reason proposed for this is that it used to be a survival strategy, where cave dwellers who expect danger are likely to survive longer than those who are misty-eyed optimists. Even without saber-toothed tigers lurking around outside your cave, in the present day, that is, we are still encumbered by a tendency to pessimism. Our Stone Age brain tends to lead us to see the glass as always being half empty, and generally tuning in to the negative things in life. For this reason, we tend to be suspicious by nature, and it means that being nice to people comes easily to us only for those who have a biological connection to us. In other words, the people we already like. But to be nice to people who have done something bad to us, well, that is something that is definitely going to take an extra effort. We are going to need to work at it. This is where meditation and working with the mind generally gives us a big advantage. As we heard last session, compassion is not something that comes naturally to most people. We had forgiveness therapy just now, but in fact, more recently, have launched additional ones, including compassion therapy and even self-compassion therapy. So that means that there is definitely a demand from people out there who would pay hard-earned money for such things. People find it difficult even to have compassion for themselves. They want to beat themselves up the whole of the time. In short, any sort of forgiveness takes practice, and you need to spend time working at it. It will definitely be an uphill struggle for most people, but there is a way forward, and the key to success is that you start by working with a benign situation that is easy to control, before expanding it to things that are really the big stakes issues in your life. It is like taking back control for yourself, because although we like to be sympathetic towards victims, in the end you would like them to go beyond that, to empower them, rather than just sympathizing with them. Speaking of opportunities for empowerment, at this time we settle ourselves for some meditation. And if you'd like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself now as you listen to my guidance. So if you'd like to start by closing your eyes very gently. Close your eyes in the same way that you might like to close your eyes to go to sleep. So never squeezing your eyes closed, but closing your eyes gently in just the same way you might close them if you're about to go to sleep. So not squeezing your eyes closed, but just letting your upper and lower eyelashes touch gently together. And in accordance with this idea of making sure our body is relaxed for the first 5 minutes of every meditation, we take a few deep breaths to ourselves, breathing into the full volume of our lungs, and then breathing slowly and smoothly out again. Once again, we breathe the cool, refreshing air from around us. And as we breathe out, we may feel that we're letting go of any worries and concerns previously on our mind. Let it go with the out-breath. And to make sure our body is as relaxed as it can be, we do what's known as a body scan, which means scanning down through the whole of our body in our imagination to make sure each and every muscle is properly relaxed. So we start at the top of our head, relaxing our eyebrows, our forehead, checking once again to make sure our eyes are only gently closed, allowing the muscles of our face to become soft. Relaxing our jaw, taking special care not to clench our teeth together. And we move on down to relax all the muscles of our neck and let our shoulders drop to their natural height. Relaxing our arms, our forearms, hands and fingers, so that as our hands rest in our lap, they do so lightly and gently. Continuing on down, we relax all the muscles of our torso, chest, trunk, and across our belly. Relaxing both legs, all the way down to our feet and our toes. Until our body feels so relaxed that it's almost as if it seems to disappear into the atmosphere around us, so that we have no more worries about our body anymore, and we can turn our attention instead to relaxing our state of mind. And by our mind, I mean the sense of warmth, well-being, inner space within us. It's also something which we spend about 5 minutes relaxing, putting in a good frame of mind before we make a start on the meditation itself. So we put aside any worries or concerns in our lives, like an unburdening, bringing our awareness back within the space of our body and into the here and now, not letting our awareness get caught up with any regrets from our past or any plans for the future, but staying in the present moment, focusing on the task in hand. And we conjure up a sense of happiness and joy inside ourselves, almost as if those tiny particles of happiness and joy were completely filling our body and mind, until eventually we come to the point where there's no space left inside our body and mind not occupied by that sense of happiness and joy. If joy and happiness doesn't come naturally to you, you can cast your mind back to a time in your life when you felt truly happy, focusing more on that feeling that it gave you, the warm fuzzy feeling on the inside, more than the actual situation. Allow the happiness and joy to grow and spread within yourself. And when you feel relaxed both in body and in mind, imagine that within the space of your body is just a hollow cavity, an empty space with no organs or tissues, muscles or bones. And once again, remember back to the bright object which you imagined a few moments ago. Maybe a bright sun shining in the sky, yellow, gold, orange in color, a full moon, a star, maybe a diamond, whatever comes easiest to you. And this time we allow that inner object to come within the space of our own body, floating gently downwards within ourselves, almost as if we were breathing it down to the point at the center of our abdomen, or as if we were gently swallowing the object down until it reaches the pit of our stomach. And once it reaches that place, then we don't move it anywhere else, but we try to maintain it as continuously as we can for as long as we can. If the mind wanders away, we bring it back. If the inner object disappears, we think of a new one. And if the thoughts inundate the mind, we do our best to ignore them, or make use of the sound of that mantra I suggested, the words Samma Arahang, hearing those words as if they seem to come like a silent music from the center of our body, for as long as it takes for the thoughts to become quieter and eventually disappear. And today, as we're meditating, we will reflect on how to touch upon more joy in life by re-engaging with the astral light arising from the inside. Because sometimes life can be like a roller coaster. Sometimes there are good times, sometimes there are bad. It's like when the sun is up, the world is bright, but when the sun goes down, the world is left in darkness. But there is an art to living in darkness, and the wisdom of meditation teaches us very well how to make the most of life. In the times of darkness, meditation is an important tool, and is key to enjoying life in spite of the bad times. So we relocate our attention to the center of the body, somewhere inside the stomach, within the abdomen. It's the same place where the in-breath stops for a moment before it turns around to come out again as an out-breath. For as long as we can maintain our awareness somewhere at the center, as long as we can reconnect at that point, then we touch upon a sense of inner peace automatically. And it's almost like a sense of homecoming for the mind. The mind that's normally pulled away to things around us gets to come back to a place where it can recharge and replenish itself. It's the place where the mind truly belongs, a place where the mind can rest from its wandering and take the opportunity to be still for a change, absorbing the sense of peace from the inside that is gradually and slowly increasing. The sense of peace is generated in spite of our doing nothing more than keeping our mind still at the center. When there are bad times in our lives, it's like the mind is blanketed by darkness. That inner darkness prevents and hinders the mind from shining through. At the same time, it tends to cause us to overlook any silver lining in our lives, to the point that positivity can't get through to the mind. That blanket of darkness renders the mind coarse and unyielding. It generates negative feeling in the mind, whether it be anger, depression, boredom, or despair. And the only definitive way to get out from under that blanket of darkness is by meditation. As we know from the wisdom of that meditation technique, the original nature of the mind is clarity, purity, radiance, and a spherical appearance. But we lose contact with the mind's original pure nature when it gets blanketed by that darkness. But by practicing meditation, we will be able to restore the beauty, the clarity, the cleanliness, and the spherical nature of the mind, restoring it to its original essence. It's only by returning the attention to the center point of the abdomen that this can be achieved, to recover the brightness within again. According to the wisdom of meditation, this inner location is also said to be the spark of life. Every time we connect to that spark of life, we can reconnect to the brightness of the original mind. The brightness here will dispel the darkness blanketing our life. All we need to do is to let the inner light radiate through from the center of our body, spreading that brightness outwards until it dispels the blanket of darkness covering our mind and our lives. So we continue to maintain our attention gently at the original spark of light within ourselves for a few more moments in silence. And as we practice further, we will become more adept at using the lightest of touch at the center of the body, allowing the brightness to shine forth naturally, almost like the gentle click of a mouse button at just the right point on a computer screen. Those with the experience often recount feeling moved by the sense of inner light arising from within. But for newcomers, it's not so hard just to approximate to the same brightness by using thought and memory to start the mind on the right track, creating an imaginary picture of light. This is how we can harness thought and memory to create an inner picture. So we conjure up a suitable picture, and by suitable, I mean thinking of or recalling an inner object that is bright by nature. If we recall candlelight, then we'll be able to perceive the glimmer of a candle flame at our center. If we recall a star or a diamond, then a star or a diamond will appear in tranquility at the center of ourselves. And with the inner picture will come a sense of joy and release, which gradually grows within us as the spark of light starts to penetrate through the blanket of darkness in our lives. When we practice meditation, all we have to do is to let ourselves enjoy the feeling that accompanies the inner light, something which, according to the wisdom of meditation, is known as the light of wisdom. Once we gain access to the light of wisdom, although the darkness of life may still be there, it will no longer cause us to suffer to the same extent. Life will seem brighter every hour of the day, every minute, every breath we take, as we gain that light of wisdom. Meditation is really the only way to access this transformation. This is the reason why we need to practice together peacefully in this way, until we can meditate confidently on our own. So to live in the brightness, in spite of the darkness of life, the wisdom of meditation is essential and brings a sense of joy, both by day and by night. Modern terminology might call it a coping strategy for leading your life out of darkness. So keep your mind on track at the center of the body by re-establishing it there again whenever it wanders. It's easy to assume the center is helping us when life feels bright and joyous. But if the shadows return, don't wait until it's too late. Make the opportunity to rekindle the inner light by sitting down to do meditation as soon as you can. In this way, to enjoy life to the fullest, enjoying meditation and enjoying life go hand in hand. In the meantime, we allow the astral light at the center to continue transforming our life from within, as we continue to practice meditation for a few more moments in silence. In many respects, meditation is like the other skills that we learn in life, whether it be mastery of a sport or fluency in a new language. Practice makes perfect. And although we might be new to meditation today, learning the technique for the first time, and possibly coming across obstacles, for some, or maybe beginner's luck for others, it's useful to bear in mind that practice will help us to go further within the same length of time. The key to establishing the skill of meditation is regularity in our lives. And generally I recommend that everyone find at least 20 minutes to meditate each day. Sitting down at a time of the day which is convenient for you, a time when you're not too tired, when you still have a little bit of energy. Relaxing your body, relaxing your mind, focusing gently at your center, while clearing the thoughts from your mind. If you can manage this for 20 minutes each day, then there'll be a sense of well-being that builds up within yourself, that becomes tangible in the latter stages of your meditation practice. A warm fuzzy feeling on the inside that seems to stay with you, even as you get up from your meditation to do other things, and that sense of well-being will still be with you as you do other things. Of course, it will wear off after some time, but as you meditate more regularly, you get more hours of meditation under your belt, then the sense of well-being will stay with you for longer, be more robust, more resilient, will stay with you in spite of the challenges that confront you in life, until what's known as mindfulness develops in your waking life in a way that's seamless with the well-being that you develop when you have your eyes closed to meditation, until it's something that you can keep with you from the moment you wake up in the morning to the last thing at night. So apart from remembering the technique you practiced today, I would encourage you to practice further on your own, in your own homes, on a regular basis. When you have questions, then you can come back to the online group with hopefully some good answers. And also meditating along with others is a good source of inspiration and encouragement to keep us going, even though we might be meditating physically on our own. So we continue to meditate in this way for a few more moments now in silence until we come to the appropriate time. Sappa Buddhanupavena, Sappa Dhammanupavena, Sappa Sankhanupavena Sattha Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing into a more comfortable position and gently finish your practice. So, to continue with our reflections on the subject of forgiveness, reaching toward forgiveness is almost like the steps of working through grief when you are a survivor. Forgiveness is the inner peace and wise perspective that allows us to keep our heart open in the face of injustice, betrayal, or harm. If you don't have that openness, then it's like you're putting up a stone wall, which prevents you from negotiating any better terms for your injustice. Secondly, you need to accept that it's not just you, but everyone has a need for forgiveness, but it may take time for the forgiveness to take root. It's like working through a whole series of emotional layers, most of which are quite negative. If you are committed to something like a daily meditation practice, then it will be a huge advantage because it allows you to gradually work through those layers in a way that's not traumatic for you. You can go at your own pace. The forgiveness process starts with a willingness to let go of your personal suffering. Without that willingness, you can't even take the first step on the way. As you meditate more, a sense of awareness will arise concerning the unfinished or unprocessed business of the heart, the things that are still weighing down on your emotions. So the second thing is to identify what's going on in your heart, such as realizing the reasons why am I unwilling to forgive? What is holding me back on that? If you can start to put a name to some of those motivations, then a lot of the scariness will go out of the emotions. You may not have actually removed those emotional layers yet, but at least you have identified them. The letting go then becomes almost like a grieving process, an honest grieving over the harm experienced. And you work through layer by layer. According to some Tibetan teachers, the way to do this is that when you meet your edge, you make a conscious effort to allow yourself to soften. That means to let the emotions come up gently. There is no fixed time interval that it may take. You do it at your own pace. And to quote a truism, progress is progress, however small. And in this respect, loving-kindness meditation can help a lot. If you have a sense of brightness or a feeling of well-being inside, as a result of your regular meditation. In a regular meditation, you would keep that inner experience within you at the center. The difference of loving-kindness meditation is that you take your inner experience and you allow it to spread beyond yourself in ever-widening circles, whether it be the light or the sense of well-being, toward all living beings, even toward those whom you feel aggrieved, and spreading it without exception. You can start with people you like, and then move on to the set of people toward whom you feel neutral, before continuing to those you feel slightly annoyed with, and ending up with those you find it really hard to forgive. That would be a progression from simple to challenging, in the order of cultivating a sense of forgiveness. You start with neutral people and work towards those you feel less enthusiastic about. And it becomes easier with practice until eventually you can spread loving kindness to the whole world. It is an expanding of the mind where you increasingly free yourself from petty grievances. So, continuing with our progression through forgiveness scenarios, we come to a third scenario where forgiveness needs to go hand in hand with care to protect yourself. This is an example that has a few more limitations to it. Let's say your spouse is a liar. If you forgive them, isn't it tantamount to condoning their deceit? The knee-jerk response would therefore be not to forgive your spouse, right? Well, it might be an imperfect relationship, but nonetheless, in this imperfect world, you should avoid rushing to judgment. The important thing to remember for this scenario, and why it's a little bit different from the scenarios I've already mentioned, is to remember that forgiveness is not the same thing as reconciliation. Reconciliation is something you need to negotiate. But in order to have a negotiation at all, you need to be on speaking terms. Therefore, to quote the Dalai Lama, you need to forgive but not forget. In fact, Paulo Coelho says the same thing even better in one of his quotes. The not forgetting means that if someone you know is subject to negative and repetitive behaviors, they are likely to do the same thing again. If they are likely to go for your weak spots, then if you are a sensible person, you should not forget that in a hurry. You may forgive them, but you're not going to let them have the chance to relapse into their old habit of abusing you. But if they show willingness to reform themselves, then it is generally a good sign, especially if they are someone who is close to you, and it's worth giving them a second chance. Although burying the hatchet usually brings peace to the soul, there may be some exceptions to that advice, such as in the case of any sort of abuse, where you might apply my fourth scenario, which I'll come to in just a minute. In cases where there is still some hope of reconciliation, you should apply the Buddhist principle of 3 strikes, which Buddhists have obviously copied from baseball. Let's say you have serious grievances against your partner. If you're just going to separate at the first sign of imperfection, then that would be rather premature. Similarly, for anyone who you would consider your friend, a friendship should be something that lasts. If it's going to last, then it needs to have a degree of flexibility. If the hurt is not too serious, then you should give them 3 chances, after which time you can say, I already gave you 3 chances, and most people would not consider you to be unfair. When they say, I'll never do that again, and then they do it again, then you start counting. And when you get to 3 strikes, probably anyone can see that they are not serious about changing themselves. So, forgiveness doesn't mean that you become a complete doormat. The final scenario can be applied to the withholding of forgiveness where the wrongdoing is really too much to bear. It may be illegal or it may constitute abuse of some sort. For example, it may apply to situations involving addictive substances. If you get mixed up with a sociopath, the sort of people who research has demonstrated that have no conscience, then there's no alternative to protecting yourself through damage control. And this would apply to the case where a person has already used up their 3 strikes. The first 3 strikes was the opportunity for you to learn that they don't have a conscience, after which time you know, with no undue vindictiveness, you have to distance yourself from them, take legal action or legally enforce boundaries to limit the damage they can do to yourself or others. One would hope that further down the road they can learn or they can change, but in the meantime, society needs to be protected from them. Jails can be good places for them to reflect on personal change in the meantime. They can seek forgiveness within the confines of incarceration. You've probably heard the ancient fable of the frog and the scorpion crossing the river. The story goes something like this. A scorpion which cannot swim asks a frog to carry it across the river on the frog's back. The frog hesitates, afraid of being stung by the scorpion. But the scorpion argues that if it did that, they would both drown. The frog considers this argument sensible and agrees to transport the scorpion. Midway across the river, the scorpion stings the frog anyway, dooming them both. And at that point, the dying frog asks the scorpion why it stung, despite knowing the consequence, to which the scorpion replies, I couldn't help it, it's in my nature. Understanding that certain harmful behaviors are in someone's nature can help you, unlike the frog in the story, not to let your guard down, because some people don't get better quickly enough to learn from their mistakes. I guess tigers look cuddly, but you don't want to be around them when they've missed their mealtime. You need to have a cage around them, rather than hiring them to babysit your kids. It is nothing to do with their rights. It's to do with a level of trust. Don't have tigers or scorpions for that matter as your babysitter. Although you can always try to forgive someone, but you should not put yourself in harm's way. To make sure you release yourself from their abuse. So 3 strikes, and beyond that, don't keep turning the other cheek, because you need to limit the potential damage. So finally, a little story or two about forgiveness. The first is a story of a monk living in a tiny log cabin somewhere in the forest with not too many possessions. One evening, when the monk was sitting, studying his scriptures or whatever monks do, he noticed that there was a stranger rummaging about in his cabin and helping himself to the few possessions the monks had. So the monk found this surprising, and so when what would seem to be a thief was removing the possessions and stepping outside through the back window, the monk caught up with him and said, "Excuse me, don't you normally say thank you to people whose possessions you get?" So the thief said, "Well, thank you," not very sincerely, and then he disappeared with all the monk's stuff. The very next day, the cops caught the thief because in the swag bag there were things that very obviously could only belong to a monk. So they called in the monk to testify against the thief. And when it came to time for the monk to incriminate the thief, he said, "I can't testify against this man because when he took my stuff, he said thank you. So it must mean he was not stealing them." The cops were quite confused by this, but the person who was really struck by the monk's words was the thief, who realized the degree of the monk's forgiveness, when he was the one to steal from the monk in the first place. So the happy ending was that the thief reformed himself by signing up as the student of the monk and served him honestly for the rest of his life. So actually, receiving forgiveness really changed the world for the better in this case. So we turn to a story a little closer to home. This is a story told by the Spirit Rock meditation teacher Julie Wester, who I assume is the mother in the story. One day her daughter was left to play in a living room, which was decorated with many precious ornaments and curios, one of which was a little horse figurine. As the daughter was playing with the horse, it fell on the floor and broke into pieces. On impulse, in her embarrassment, the daughter quickly hid the broken pieces. So when the mother came back into the room and discovered the absence of the horse, she asked her daughter, "There used to be a little horse figurine here before. Do you know where it's disappeared to?" The daughter said, "I don't know," with a very unconvincing look on her face. At this point, the mother could have done one of many different things. She could have punished the daughter for telling lies. She could have shouted at her for being clumsy. But this mother was of a more forgiving nature, so she said to the child, "How about you go out the door and come back in again, and we will start this conversation all over again. And this time, when you come back, tell me the truth." Second time round, when the mom asked, "Have you seen the little horse figurine?" the daughter admitted that the pieces of the broken horse were in the trash can. The upshot of the second conversation was that the mother and the daughter had an activity together, figuring out how all the pieces fit together and repairing the horse with glue, in a way that bonded mother and daughter even closer than before, turning a bad situation into a good one, simply from the fact that the mother valued forgiveness more than having the last word. Capacity for forgiveness can be a big predictor of how a relationship will fare in the long term. In this case, the small sacrifice of a horse figurine saved the relationship between a mother and a daughter. So, to leave you with a few little things which you can take away and practice for yourself, sometimes you may like a person, but you may not like the things they do. Forgiveness is often about separating out what people do from what they are. If you can separate the two in a way that's acceptable to yourself, you can criticize what a person does without criticizing the person themselves. Sometimes you can realize the weak points that a person has. For example, if you have a compulsive gambler in the house who needs help, you can get them the help they need. In the context of Buddhist culture, there are many aspects of traditional ceremonies that give the opportunity for forgiveness, to give the chance to start over anew. For example, New Year can be the chance to start over with resolutions. In Thailand, they actually celebrate New Year 4 times in a year: Western New Year, Chinese New Year, Thai New Year, and Indian New Year. So they have at least 4 days in the year that are the opportunity to start afresh, with everyone giving each other the chance to change. And it keeps people talking to one another in a way that that stone wall never goes up. The love of starting anew is expressed by asking forgiveness from elders and betters, parents and respected members of the community, and to make sure the past is the past and is water under the bridge. For bad relationships, it's like doing the 3-finger salute on your computer, Control-Alt-Delete. You can just do a complete reset. Or it's like a sense of amnesty or a moratorium, where if you own up before such and such a deadline, then we won't involve the cops. It keeps people out of the jailhouse. There's a lot of good things you can say about this. If you trust that people have a conscience, at least give them the chance to show that they have one before condemning them or writing them off completely. So in conclusion, if it is an irreparable situation, work with what you feel about it. If you aren't getting your land back, then do the things that will help you boost your emotional and physical health. If it's a scenario where you're working through emotions, yes, you are the hurt party in this situation, and yet it falls on you to make the restitution. Don't expect the person who's hurt you to come running back and heal you. Unfortunately, the onus falls upon yourself, but you are the one who gets the benefit from the efforts you make. In a scenario that requires reconciliation, forgive but don't forget, and that will open the door to whatever negotiation needs to continue, so that perhaps you will not lose the friends that you otherwise value. And finally, there may be some situations that warrant damage control. In any case, meditation can help because part of the things you do with your mind as you are working with your mental refinement will give you the psychological distance you need so that you don't immediately get caught in the negative emotions that wreck a situation before you've had the chance to deal with the situation. So there you have it, meditation and forgiveness, and I hope you can take it away and gain full benefit from it. We turn now to answer the questions sent in by viewers, and this week the first question comes from Roger Franks of Claremont, California. Here comes the question. Is there a reason in Buddhist psychology or spirituality that suggests why that particular spot in the navel is where one should focus in meditation? Hi Roger, in answer to your question, I'm usually a little hasty in explaining the why of the center of the body. The meditation, as I have been teaching it, follows the Dhammakaya tradition, and in this lineage, the center of the body and the mind is 2 finger breadths above the level of the belly button, deep in the center of the body. The center of the body is a place where the awareness gains unique qualities, including access to wisdom and complete freedom from thought. It is also the point where the mind and the body will come into balance. Through the point at the center of the body, the Dhammakaya tradition believes there are multiple dimensions of the body and mind overlaid on top of each other, so that all of them have a common center. We can think of this point at the center of the body to be a doorway through which, with meditation, we can explore the multitudinous dimensions of ourselves to find true peace and happiness. By placing the body and mind together so they can share a common center, we can create the highest amount of concentration in all dimensions of ourselves and multiply peace and happiness without limit. I should also point out that the center of the body is shared only by a limited number of Buddhist meditation techniques. By way of explanation, the oldest extant references to Dhammakaya-like meditation methods, which go back to medieval times, where there is a specific instruction to focus at the center of the body, comes from the Manual of a Mystic. Use of the center of the body, at least the navel, has a historic precedent in the Yogavichara literature, including the Borangamatan, or esoteric Theravada tradition of Cambodia, described by François Bizot in his 1976 book called Le Figuier à 5 branches. Dhammakaya meditation tends to be even more specific than most meditations in Buddhism generally, in emphasizing the 7th base of the mind as the point of internal focus. The 7th base of the mind is a point at the center of the diaphragm. and the same place is highlighted as the solar plexus or the abdominal brain by authors such as Joseph Murphy in his 2010 book The Power of Your Subconscious, and Theron Q. Dumont's 1920 book called The Solar Plexus or Abdominal Brain. So let me finish up with a quick mention about temple support and a news update about the availability of meditation teaching in English. At the moment, with the stricter than usual stay-at-home order statewide in California, anyone wanting to make a contribution to the temple in person should contact the temple first. If you would like to bring food to the temple during this period, all you need to do is phone up Crystal first on 626-991-6958, and a member of staff will come to collect the food from you at the temple gate, in place of the usual monk receiving offerings. As for temple donations, I have been asked to keep it short, so you can see the details on ticker tape for those wishing to support the temple without attending in person. And needless to say, the whole temple would like to rejoice in your merits of taking the opportunity to support the temple in this way. Meditation is particularly valuable in this COVID era to help us cope with the extended lockdown. And in this respect, here at the temple, although there are still no face-to-face teaching sessions for the interim, you can access Dhamma teachings in English at the YouTube channel called Peace Point Meditation or the Facebook page of Peace Point Meditation, either live on Thursday evenings and Sunday mornings or on demand after the event. For those of you who've been following my talks, you may be interested to subscribe to a YouTube channel which I have recently set up in my own name, which can be found by searching for Prat Nicholas Thanissaro on YouTube, where I've systematized my own teachings and cut them down to the bare essentials. Meanwhile, Peace Breaks are broadcast every evening between 7 and 8 p.m. from Friday to Wednesday. And please note the new later broadcast time for the Thursday evening peace time of 6 to 7 p.m. For the benefit of families listening in, there's also a special show for children in English known as Shining Stars that goes out between 7:30 and 8 p.m. every Monday evening with bedtime stories and meditation short enough to keep the attention of younger listeners. Outside of the live streams and the on-demand programming, there's also the MindGem app, which you can download for free, allowing you to listen to meditation and Dhamma talks in English on your cell phone, even when you are offline. So this session we've looked at the topic of give forgiveness, get peace. For my next session online with you, which will, fingers crossed, be a week on Sunday morning and a week on Thursday evening, we'll be moving on to look at the subject of nipping anger in the bud. For good measure, I would like to remind viewers that even better than posting thank you or great talk or sadhu in the broadcast comments, you can email your questions about meditation or what you've heard in the lecture to the email address as you can see spelled out on the slide, and I'll do my best to answer these on my next session. In the meantime, try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness or complacency in the face of the virus, maintain a positive mood, speak only positive words, forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Also try to practice forgiveness appropriate to every situation in your life. So today, this is me, Prat Nicholas Thanissaro, signing off for this session. So long, folks, and stay safe.